Welcome to the Chasing Spirituality podcast. I'm your host, Megan, and I'm so excited that you're joining me today. Each episode is full of heartfelt and expansive content that will really help you expand your consciousness and grow as a person. I created this podcast because I wanted to share my own personal experiences on my spiritual journey, but I also wanted to meet others and have them share what they've been through and how they've gotten to where they are today. If you haven't done so already, it would really mean a lot to me if you could rate and review the podcast. This really helps the podcast grow and reach more people, but it also allows me to get more guests on the show. Now on to today's topic. Hello everyone, I am super excited that you're here, and I am actually not recording a solo episode today. I actually have a guest, and we are going to be talking to Ambrosia Matthews. Ambrosia is a psychic medium, she is a channel, and she is also the co-host of the podcast Innerbloom. And I'm really excited to introduce her to you guys because when we connected, I just instantly resonated with her and her work and her content, and I knew that she would be a great guest to have on the show. So I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Make sure you listen to the end because there is a discount code that you can use to book a session with her. I also have that in the description, so I hope you enjoy it. Good. How are you?
Good. Good.
Excited for the weekend?
Say that again.
Are you excited for the weekend?
I am. How about you?
Very excited. It's been a long week.
Good. Is this a video recording too or just audio?
I always post the audio first. Eventually, I want to convert more videos onto YouTube. So eventually I'll put the video out there, or maybe parts of the video out there. But I don't know that the video will come out immediately. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Cool. So I kind of just want to keep it conversational, just feel free to talk whatever you feel called to speak about, share your story, your experiences. I know that I'll have you usually start off talking about your journey and how you got to where you are today. And then I kind of just let the conversation naturally flow from there. I am interested in bringing up your journey into channeling, and maybe even talking about the Art 9 a little bit, if it flows into that. Is there anything in particular that you want me to bring up?
Hold on one second. I'm so sorry.
You're
Oliver,
fine.
are you okay? Okay, he's not crying, so I guess he's fine. Is there anything in particular? There's nothing in particular. I mean, I'd like to touch on retreats. I think would be a good one to touch on.
Okay.
And how important community is.
I love that.
What else? Did I give you a discount code?
Mm-mm.
All right, let me give you one. So what I'll do is let's do something cute. Let's use the code. If they use code I'm trying to think of something fun and cute. Podcast. I was gonna say Chasing Spirituality, but that's a long one.
It is.
I don't what if somebody spells it wrong, or you know what I mean?
Right. I like podcasts. That sounds good.
I'll give them 15% off a reading.
Perfect.
If they want to do that. Yeah. Other than that, there's really nothing that's standing out to me today or anything like that. Just go with the flow. How long do you record for?
On average, it's around an hour on average. I try not to go too much more than an hour, but if the conversation is getting really good, I won't cut it off. Okay. So on average, about an hour, sometimes a little less.
Okay, good, cool.
Awesome. Well, we'll just jump in. I usually do like a bio and stuff like that. I cut that part in. So okay. I'll just introduce you, and we'll just get talking.
All right. If I mute myself, I'm just yelling at my kid. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. I've got kids too, so if no worries if they interrupt or anything like that. I know how it is. All right, so welcome back to Chasing Spirituality. I have a guest with us today, and we are talking to Ambrosia Matthews. I'm super excited to have her on the show. I recently connected with her, and if you are a follower of her, you saw that we did a podcast together on her podcast, which is the Innerbloom podcast, and I'm super excited that we connected because I had never actually heard of her or her podcast until, we magically connected, and I align with her and her work so much that I had to have her as a guest as well. So help me welcome Ambrosia.
Thank you so much for having me. I really so grateful to be here. So excited. Yeah, when I heard about you, you and I have very similar backgrounds. So that's what drew me to you immediately. So I guess I'll tell my background. So I knew that I could communicate with spirits and feel other people's energies from the time I was a little kid. Around the age of 5 is my first memory of it. And I was terrified, so scared. And my mom would say to me things like, well, you probably have schizophrenia, or you're probably like mentally ill. And so we're just not going to tell. She would literally say, we're not going to tell anybody about this. Don't tell other people. They're going to think you're crazy. So I didn't tell other people this until I was in high school. And it wasn't until I wasn't like the best kid in high school. I was kind of a party girl. And we were at under a freeway passing, and I grew up in San Diego, and I was watching in my mind's eye a movie play out in front of me of what happened on that freeway. And what happened was a girl got pulled over by a police officer. He hurt her really bad, sexually assaulted her, killed her, and threw her body over to the side of the freeway. So as I was watching this, someone came up to me and my friends, and they were like, did you guys hear what happened here? And I said, don't say another word. And I pulled one of my friends aside, and I said, I'm going to tell you what happened here. So I told them the story in detail, and they said, how do you know that? And I said, because I'm watching it happen in front of me right now. And they were freaked out. So then we go back over to the guy that was trying to explain the story, and it turns out it was true. There's a whole law that states that you have the right to pull over under a well-lit lamp or somewhere in like public when you get pulled over by a police officer. And it's because of this girl, like because of how she passed and things like that. Her parents made it a law or had a bill signed. So after that, people started kind of believing me a little bit more. But most importantly, I started believing myself. And really was very scared of it because I didn't know what to do with it. The reaction that I would typically get from people was fear. So until I was in my 30s, which is just such a long time, I decided that I was going to start taking classes. And with the help of my ex-husband, he told me, I think you should really dive into this. You should really figure out what's going on. So I did. And I took classes through a shaman, several psychic mediums, several energy workers, just to try to see what was happening to me, why could I do the things that I was doing, and what do I do with this? So I continue on a couple more years, and I met Alexa, and I gave her a reading, and I kept just kind of giving her more information and more information. I felt like I was harassing her, but there was something inside me that says, don't stop talking to her. So she said to me, so you have this gift and you're just not going to share it with anybody. And that kind of took my breath away, because I was like, I guess that's a good point, because I had always looked at it as a curse or a negative thing. So started going live on Facebook, scared to death, and people just started watching me and following me. And I think the biggest thing that people are afraid of, you know, I know you teach, and when I teach people, is being wrong. And that was the biggest thing that I was afraid of too, is what if I've made this all up? What if it's not real? What if I'm just literally crazy? So that is how we are where we are today with the psychic stuff and the mediumship.
Yeah. I definitely resonate with that as well. You know, growing up and being able to see things, know things, understand things, but not really be able to explain to someone how you know these things. And it is it's scary. I can see how that would also scare scare a mom or a dad. But I definitely think that it's important that we support children, doing this, and I guess, what are your views on people who start to unlock this ability? Do you think that this is something that everyone has access to? Do you think that it's something that people shut off at an early age, or is everyone always open, or is it a choice? What are your views kind of on that?
That's a good question. I do think that everybody has the ability to access this. I think this is an innate birthright. I don't think this is something that certain people have and certain people don't have. And I think it's called different things depending upon your background and your religious beliefs and things of that nature. That being said, because we've seen this throughout history. But that being said, I also think that there is an ability to distract yourself, numb yourself out, not listen to that little voice in your head, in your heart, that says maybe don't go left, maybe go right. Because sometimes it is a subtle whisper. It's not always going to be this loud person, actual human being in your room. And I've met a lot of people over the years now, from people that can communicate with spirits so much that they don't know if they're talking to a living person or a dead person, that's not always the best either. And then also people that are like, oh no, I'm not intuitive, but just know things about people, or like get gut feelings about things. And I'm like, that's intuition. It's just not what it looks like in the movies.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that the more that we talk about this, talk about intuition, and we talk about connecting to spirit, it helps people realize that they are doing it. Because I know for a long time, I didn't realize what I was doing. I didn't realize that I was using my intuition, or that I was actually reading for people. I just thought that I was really good at giving advice. And I think you've said the same thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. I thought I was really good at giving advice. I remember when I was a waitress, I was 18, and I would play this game. I used to play so many games that now I'm like, oh my gosh. But one of the games were when I went to a table, I wanted to guess, I'm air quoting that, what was going on with that couple, the party, like what was happening there, right? And I would say it out loud to them and really freak people out, which is a huge violation of your privacy. But at the time I didn't know, right? So I remember I said to one couple, you guys are on a first date, aren't you? And they both got so freaked out, and they were like, how do you know that? And then I didn't think it was weird. I was just like, yeah, I'm right. And I felt validated, if that makes sense. But probably not the best thing to do to people.
Yeah. I think that we can I think most of us are guilty of playing little games like that. You know, me and my husband were actually talking a while ago about how we would make like little predictions. We would have this game when we were kids, like young kids, where he would be like, "Oh, if I can do this trick on my skateboard, then that means this girl likes me." You know, just like little things like that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of like working with the universe to get an outcome, you know, to get an answer for something that you may not know. And we just didn't even realize that we were doing that as kids. Did you play stuff like that too as a kid?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, and you know, I still do stuff like that, but now it's different. Now it's like, okay, guides, if this is going to happen, then send me this sign. Same idea, same concept, you know what I mean? But it's just slightly different. I remember my ex-husband, this was so funny. We used to play rock, paper, scissors all the time together. And the last time we played together, I was trying to read his mind, because sometimes I could do that, but I'm not great at it. And I could read his mind, and he was thinking scissors. So I threw rock and he threw paper. And I was like, oh, you tricked me. So it was really funny. It was a good time.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about the fear that you brought up. And I agree that fear is it's a really big thing that stands in the way of us really tapping into our gifts. I know for me personally, fear has also been a big part of my journey, and it's still something that I have to kind of work through and psych myself up about when I'm doing something new or I'm doing something different. So can you talk a little bit about how you worked through your own fear and what you feel like really helped you kind of get through some of those fears of, like you said, being wrong? Because I think that that is one of the number one fears that can come up for us when we start doing this work.
Yeah. So I was afraid of so many things, and I still am working on it. But I was afraid that it was going to be like the movie The Sixth Sense once I started communicating with dead people, which it's not for me, thank goodness. Although I have seen them physically with my eyes a couple times, it's still not like that, which I appreciate. Once I realized that I had more control than I didn't give away my power. It wasn't, because I see a lot of people do this in the beginning. Okay, this information is just coming to me. I don't know how to control it. Well, you have to learn how to control it, because you have to learn how you can't give away your power, right? So you have to learn how to control that. So that made me feel more comfortable with my abilities, my gifts. And then I don't even like the word gifts because it implies that some people don't get them. I digress. And then as far as being wrong, I look at it in this way now. When I have had 9-to-5 jobs in the past, I have been wrong. I've had days where it is not a good day and I am wrong. So why would this be different? I think that and I've met a lot of intuitives that are like, no, I'm never wrong. And I think that that is actually pretty toxic and not a good thing, because it goes into the guru mentality. And we're seeing a lot of spiritual religious leaders really showing that when you have that mentality of, I can do no wrong, you have to listen to me, you're no longer human. You're no longer held to the same standards that the rest of society is held to and the rest of humanity is held to. And so I think that allowing myself to be wrong and saying there's a possibility that this could be wrong is really embracing my humanity and really embracing the fact that we're all here experiencing this life, and we're all going to have good days and we're all going to have bad days. And this might be one of those days where I'm having a bad day or an off moment. And that doesn't mean that everything I say is wrong. It just means that this one thing is wrong.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I love the way that that you said that. You know, that's one of the things that I also talk about with my students and with my clients that are working on developing their intuition. Is I tell them, you know, most of the time I don't think that we're wrong when we're channeling, when we're getting intuitive information. I just think that maybe our interpretation is wrong.
Yes.
But understanding that it's okay if that happens. That's a learning opportunity. That's a moment of growth. We're never going to always know exactly what spirit means, because spirit communicates a lot in symbols and in metaphors. And so sometimes our interpretation is incorrect. But I do like how you pointed out, when we can admit that we're going to be wrong sometimes, we're going to have bad days, and just like you would with any other job, and that's okay. I think that helps alleviate some of those fears that come up when you actually start reading for people.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a difference between I'm consistently wrong, right? And I'm interpreting something differently, or I'm misinterpreting this. And I have had moments where I've been on live. It was probably in January of this year. I was on live and I had a lot of people watching. I was pretty embarrassed. And everything that I was saying, people were like, nope, that doesn't make sense. Nope, that doesn't make sense. And when that happens, okay, this is a me thing now. This is not a you guy thing. This is a me thing. So I got off the live because I was like frustrated and sad and embarrassed. And then I got the flu the next day. And I was like, okay, there it is. Like I wasn't 100%. My body was shutting down. I fought through it because I, air quote, had to go live. I shouldn't have gone live. I should have listened to that little voice, my intuition telling me, don't go live right now, just rest. But I think that when we fight through that feeling, yeah, we're going to have off days. And that's with anybody.
Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out and for having that example, because it is true. I still get, frustrated and kind of flustered with myself if I feel like I got something wrong. And 9 times out of 10, I'm able to learn from that experience, see how I misinterpreted it, or, something comes up to, like you said, you find out that you were sick or you're having an off day. Something comes up to make me feel validated again. But it's hard to be vulnerable. That's the hard part, is allowing yourself to be vulnerable first. But the only way to really grow and expand your abilities and learn from these experiences is to be vulnerable.
I agree with you 100%. And I think that, gosh, I've been doing this for 6 years now professionally. And I think over the years, like in the beginning, my ego was so out of control that I really just wanted to be validated and right about everything. And what that looked like for me was crying. If I could get my sitter to cry, because and not just like, I'm going to be mean to you and bully you and make you cry, right? Because that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is like, I've said something or I've brought your loved one through in such a way that you feel like they're there and now you're crying. That makes me feel like I did my job for the day. And I had to work with a hypnotherapist about that for probably like 6 months, because that is so not healthy. So my worth and my validity is dependent upon how emotional my sitter gets. That's crazy. That's not good. And you're talking about doing between 5 and 8 readings a day, 5 days a week. That's a lot. So it's just, that is not healthy. But there used to be a joke that when I did live events or anything, like you wouldn't walk away from me without crying. And I had to really like let go of that identity and that persona, because that contributes to, if this person doesn't have a certain reaction, then I am not a good person, or I'm not good at this.
Yeah. Yeah, that actually resonates with me a lot. I definitely have had sessions where I've made people cry, and then I've had sessions where I haven't, but I can see how we do get this satisfaction where we feel like we did a good job if the reaction is the way we expected it to be. And you're right, that can really affect our self-worth and how we look at ourselves. And so I think that back to what you were saying, a few questions ago, when we can take our power back and understand that our self-worth is inside of us, that can really help with all of this and really help you step into that intuition. It all goes back to the power that you place in yourself and not in the sitter, not in the other people that you're reading for.
Absolutely. Because you're still seeking that validation, that self-worth, just in a different way now.
Yeah. So, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about your podcast that you have with Alexa. So you guys have a podcast, Innerbloom, and you guys really help people with their intuition and growing their abilities and trusting themselves. So do you want to talk a little bit about the podcast and then the community that you have around that?
Yeah. So the podcast came about when Alexa and I connected. We were texting each other and on the phone, literally from the moment we woke up to the moment we went to bed. It was crazy. It was like a relationship fast, like on the fast track. That was a terrible analogy. I digress. It was very intense. And we just wanted someone to talk to about spirituality. She could do like telekinesis and all of these cool things that I had never even heard of before. So she was teaching me how to do cloud bursting, and she was teaching me how to move objects with energy. And I was teaching her how to remote view and how to do telepathy and different things like that. So we were just, it was magic. It was so exciting. So then we decided to have a podcast because we wanted other people to feel the excitement and feel like they had a safe place to go to talk about all of these magical things, right? Because at the time we only had each other. So we created a Facebook page, we created a podcast, and then I got the idea through talking to somebody else of retreats. And it was a complete misunderstanding. I said, let's do a retreat. She thought I meant go to a retreat. She agreed to it. The third person on the phone said, yes, let's do that. And that's how our first retreat came about. And we've been doing retreats ever since, which is one of our favorite things to do. But it was hysterical that it almost didn't happen because it was a complete misunderstanding.
That actually sounds kind of like aligned. It seems like the universe kind of conspired to actually make that happen. I feel like a lot of times when our plans don't go the way we expected them to, that's the universe stepping in and saying, nope, this is an opportunity. We're going to take it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I had never been to a retreat at that time. I had never hosted a retreat at the time. I just knew that I wanted to be with a bunch of weirdos like me, and I wanted to meet a bunch of people, and I wanted to talk about this stuff and do all this stuff all the time. And so it was so much fun. Our first retreat was at the Himalayan Institute in Pennsylvania. It was 3 days, and it was something around like $200 or $300. It was very cheap because we didn't know how much, like what were we going to do? I think that people just paid for their food basically. And it was in an ashram. So it was basically like a commune. It was very neat. We did another retreat there because we liked it so much. And it was like magic. So then we decided like, okay, well, what else could we do? We could do Sedona. Everybody's wanted to go to Sedona. We could do Joshua Tree. And that's kind of how this developed. It was, where do we want to go? What experiences do we want to have? And how can we share that with other people?
Yes, I love that. I think that community is really important, especially whenever you can commune with people that are on a similar path to you, but also bring some diversity. And so I think that a lot of us in this in the spiritual community crave to be around other spiritual people, because while this is getting more and more popular, I do feel like it's still very few and far between. So I love that you're doing that and you're offering that. So are you guys do you have like a schedule of your next few retreats that are coming out, and what can people expect? Kind of just talk a little bit about what you've got coming up with your retreats.
So our retreats they used to be really focused on like self-development, things like that, but they were very heavy. It was a lot of crying. It was a lot of self-work, which is great. But it's also a lot of energy to hold for people over 5 days. So what we're doing now, we shifted gears a little bit, and we are taking like the coaching program that we have, it's called Super Bloom, because we're corny. And we're taking that in person. So it is teaching you how to develop your intuition, doing actual practices, working with other people, giving readings, doing things like that, over the course of either a weekend or 5 days, depending upon which retreat. And then you get the 12-week coaching program for free. So you get to meet with other people forevermore, right? Because we do weekly coaching with them. So the next one we have is in May, and that is in South Carolina. It's on a lake, so it's all water-based activities. And then the one we have in August, which will be the last one of the year, is in Belize. And I am super excited about that. I've never been to Belize, and I'm very nervous and excited.
So. That sounds really, really cool. So your Super Bloom, anyone that goes to your retreats, they're basically getting Super Bloom for free. Is that yes. What you said?
Yeah.
Okay. But you still offer Super Bloom to people who aren't able to come to the retreats, or is that something that's no longer going to be offered?
If we've had a couple of people that don't want to come to the retreats because they don't like to fly or they don't want to leave the country, which totally makes sense. And you can get Super Bloom. So it's a 12-week online course. And then we meet weekly every Monday via Zoom, and we go over practices. So sometimes we go over psychic work. Sometimes we do mediumship. We do remote viewing. We do energy work. We should do sound healing. We'll probably get one of the ladies that does sound healing. And we work on all of these different skills continuously. And then if you have any questions that come up, that's a good place to ask as well. Because we have all the way from professional mediums, professional psychics, just like me, to someone who has never even heard about this stuff before, but wanted to see what would happen.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I love that you guys are doing that. I think that's a really great opportunity for someone, whether if they can't meet in person, they're still getting that opportunity for really good coaching and community, online community. But then if you're more into doing things in person, that is such an incredible experience. And then you're getting to have fun as well as get to be around other like-minded people. I really love that.
Yeah, it's really fun. We've had such a good time. Some of the wild things. So we always do like an event or an excursion at a retreat, and the last one we got trapped in the snow. So we didn't do an event or an excursion, which was just, oh no, we did ATVs. We did ATVs on the only sunny day. Before that we did helicopter rides. We've done like all kinds of fun stuff with people. So it's a little bit of, I think I'm afraid of this. I don't know if I want to do it. And then lovingly encouraging you to do it to kind of overcome that fear. So that way it's the same thing with intuition. I'm a little bit afraid of this. I don't know if I can do it. And then lovingly encourage you to keep going so you can.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. That's a really good experience. I think there should definitely be more of that. So I hope you guys continue to have those opportunities for people.
Me too. It's best. It's a lot of work, but it's super fun.
Yeah. So switching gears a little bit, I want to talk a little bit about channeling. From your personal perspective, and from your experience, can you talk a little bit about channeling, and for you, how that's different from just doing a psychic reading or a mediumship reading?
Okay. I'm glad that you asked this question, because channeling, I've learned, is that word means different things to different intuitives. So, psychic work to me is just feelings. Sometimes I hear things. Sometimes I get visuals. Mediumship work to me is there is a being in the room that I am communicating with. I will tell you how they passed. I will tell you their personality. I'll give you different information that like are pretty much facts about that person, right? And then sometimes they're deities, but usually people don't want to communicate with them, but I digress. And then there's channeling. So channeling is similar to Abraham Hicks, Bashar, things like that. So I go into a meditative state. There is an entity. This sounds super scary when I describe it like this, and this is not my intention. I go into a meditative state. There is an entity that goes into my body and speaks through me. I know that sounds crazy. I'm aware of how off the wall that sounds. Yeah, but that's what happens. So there we go. So how that happened, let me tell you a little bit about that, because
yes, please do. I'm into this.
okay.
I'm starting to channel more. So this is kind of like my jam right now.
I used to have a group of women that just met privately. There was like 15 of them in a Facebook message group, and they would all practice with each other over Zoom like once a week. It was really fun. They don't do it anymore. Sad times. But anyway, so basically what happened, it was spontaneous one day. That is a scary experience. I don't know if yours was spontaneous, but holy cow. I was giving Alexa a reading. I was holding my phone up, and something said to me audibly, hold the phone like this. So to where I could not hear it. I turned the phone sideways, could not hear it, but I could have the mic up to my mouth. And the being, I don't know how to describe it, basically said to Alexa, whatever, I don't even remember what it was, to be honest, but said something to Alexa. It felt different. It felt like someone had electrocuted me. It took almost all of the energy out of me. I was shaking. My heart was racing. I came back on the phone and I said, what was that? And I started crying because I knew something had happened that was going to like change our course. And this was early on. This was within the first year. And she said, what the hell was that? And I said, I don't know. What was that? And so Alexa is more of like the scientist for the two of us. So she was like, well, let's see if we can replicate it. Let's see if we can do it again. I don't know why she said we, it was just me. But anyway, I'm kidding. But so we did. So we tried to do it again and again and again and again. And what we've figured out, or what we discovered, was that they were Arcturian beings communicating, because they are our guides, right? They are Alexa and I's guides, but they are also a collective guide of not all humans, but basically humans that are attracted to them, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so the way that they described it was, we're going to send out a signal, and the signal is going to come through you, and it's going to bring the right people to you and give them the right information that they need for this life. So, okay. So, let me tell you a little bit about the moment that I realized, like, oh my God. So I'm having a lot of these oh my God moments. And I was always communicating with them in the beginning like I would communicate with a person that has passed away. So you're outside of my body, you're not in my body, we're here, right? But that interpretation wasn't great. It wasn't crystal clear. There was a lot of room for error. And they would ask me repeatedly, like, can we just do this? Can we just talk through you? And I'd be like, no, I'm not comfortable with that. And they'd always respect my boundaries and be like, okay, totally fine. So finally I was like, okay, after I got to know them, I was like, all right, you can do that. And I remember being at a retreat, the first retreat we did. And part of the benefit of being at a retreat is you get to communicate with them directly. And so we're communicating with them directly, and they started talking about, now this is in 2018. And they started talking about a disease that was going to run rampant in the world. And they started talking about how it is going to change humanity. It is going to change the financial system. It's going to change the healthcare system. It's going to change the way we communicate. Because of this disease, it is going to change everything. And I got really scared because, I mean, I viewed it as like, are we talking about the end of the world? Like, what are we talking about right now? And we got really freaked out. And I remember asking them, like, okay, this is enough. I don't want to do this anymore. You're scaring me. You're scaring other people. Like, I don't want to do this. And I said, and they told me it's not about scaring you, it's about preparing you. It's about telling you like you're going to be okay. Everybody you know is going to be okay. Things are going to be all right. It's going to look really bleak, but things will be okay. And so then I said, what if I'm just making this up? What if none of this is true? And this is all just, I don't know, something I'm doing for attention, right? And they showed me a chair. I said, what does that mean? That doesn't make any sense. What does a chair mean? And they said, you don't ask why the chair is there. You just sit in the chair. You just use the chair. And so I started thinking like, what a dumb analogy. But I also started thinking like, okay, that makes sense to a degree. Like this agreement that we have may not be for the rest of my life, right? I may not always channel like this. But I'm doing it now. So, okay, let's go with it. Let's roll with it. And some of the stuff that they've prepared us for is pretty wild, but it is scary sometimes. And it's also very frustrating because I think the big thing that is really different, this is how I know I'm not making it up. Sometimes when they give advice, I don't agree with the advice. Like my personal beliefs are like, I don't know if I would listen to them on this one. And the people that are receiving the advice are like, what do you mean? I'm like, I know that came out of my mouth, but like, I don't know about that. So it's kind of funny because I don't think that would be the case. Or the other part of this is that it's actually caused a lot of people to like not believe in me. And really, as opposed to someone who's just a psychic medium, it's caused a lot of backlash, more so than anything else. So very long-winded.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. First, I find it fascinating, but I understand what I've heard you say on the podcast before, on your podcast, that you're like, I don't necessarily agree with this, but this is what they're saying. And I thought that was so funny because I've noticed I've done that before as well. Whenever I've been channeling and I'm like, I don't know how I feel about what you just told me. Like,
yeah,
I can see how some people that may resonate with that, but I don't resonate with that.
Yeah.
And so I think that is a really good indicator, like you said, to kind of prove to yourself when you are having those doubts, like, is this real? Am I really doing that? Is this really happening? I think that's a really good indicator for some people that, you know, you don't even always have to 100% agree with what you're channeling, because again, it's coming from someone else or from something else.
And I think that's the other part is that because we have like a private Patreon group with them and with people that communicate with them, we get to communicate with them for 10 minutes each. And some of those people have reached out to me privately and been like, you know, they said to do this, but I don't really know. And I'm like, they're not the end all be all. If it doesn't align for you, then don't do it. Because there have been times where I'm like, I'm not going to do that. Like, bottom line, like going to the doctors is very difficult for me. And I can't tell you how many times I like just go to the doctor. I'm like, no, we're gonna tough through this. We're not gonna do that. So
yeah, I totally get that. I had a question and then just went away. Oh, I remember now. So you said that before you would just kind of let them talk to you, kind of like mediumship, and then eventually you started letting them talk through you once you got more comfortable. So do you completely lose yourself and fall asleep, or are you kind of there listening but not really fully there? Because I've heard channels say it both ways. I've heard some channels say like they completely are gone, like they don't remember anything. And then I've heard some channels say that it's almost like they've stepped over to the side and they've allowed them to kind of.
So they it has changed. So in the beginning, I had a really hard childhood, and that is important to what I'm about to share. Really difficult. And I have struggled pretty much my entire life being here as a human on this planet, wanting to be here. So I have no earth in my chart, and that is important as well. So for me, I can leave very easily. I can be gone. And in the beginning I was, and I would remember where I would go, and I would remember different experiences that I would have, and how it felt so light and so nice and so peaceful and calm and warm and happy. And then when I would come back into my body and be here, I would sob and just cry, because it is so heavy and dense to be here. And there are so many videos, which is so embarrassing, of me just like sobbing hysterically after coming back. And my body would hurt. I remember feeling like, what the hell? But anyway, I don't do that anymore. They don't let me go away anymore. So I'm very present for the conversations now. Sometimes I forget what we talk about. And sometimes I'm like, oh, they showed me X, Y, and Z when you were communicating about this. But I'm mostly present. I don't go away anymore, which is kind of sad, but what are you going to do?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. The little bit of channeling that I've done, it just, I'm there, but it's like, I can't always repeat everything that I said, because I didn't say it. So it's not part of like my memory. It was almost like I was listening. And so I can recall what I remember, but I can't ever recall exactly how it was said, because it didn't come from me.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's kind of like a dream almost.
Mm-hmm.
Like bits and pieces come back and you're like, yeah, I remember this, but it's not super crystal clear. It's more like, yeah, I remember that. Like this most recent time, because we did it Wednesday, today's Friday. They had a message. Someone that I'm teaching told me something that I didn't feel like resonates with me. And so they had a message for me before I started speaking to everybody else that, like, don't take that information. Don't hold on to that. Don't feel like that is who you are. Let it go.
Mm-hmm.
And they said out loud, tell Ambrosia, they always call me Ambrosia, they never call me Ambi. Anyway, they said, tell Ambrosia that the information that we shared with her in the beginning was for her, and it was not for the collective. So things like that I remember, but most of the time I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really neat. Do you ever, I know that, you primarily channel the Arc-9, but do you ever channel any other collective energies or anyone else?
I haven't let any other energies in my body. I've been thinking about it, but I haven't. I've communicated with Thoth. You don't need to let that man in your body, because that is an energy. He is dominant, and he is no joke. He does not like me. Because I'm too goofy and like not very serious, and he's very serious. What else? Angels. When I communicate with angels, I get like, I don't know how to describe it. Everything gets blurry. I can't see out of my eyes, and everything has like a mist around it. It's very interesting. Goddesses, it depends on what goddess though, but I haven't let anybody else like fully communicate through me.
Very cool. Very cool. So before we wrap things up, is there anything else that you're feeling called to talk about, or feeling like you need to share?
I will say that if you feel like you're getting messages, you're getting signs, you don't know what they mean. I mean, you're not alone on that one. Sometimes that happens to me too. If you also feel weird, but maybe like not as weird as me, right? Because I remember looking at other people being like, well, I'm not like that. But you're not alone. And I would highly recommend that you find a community. Highly, highly, highly recommend find people that are online or in person that you feel like you can be your weirdest woo-woo self with, because it really is a lot of fun. It's magical. I don't subscribe to the idea of like everything's super scary. It can be, but it can also be a lot of fun and really connecting.
Yeah, I got chills. So
Yeah.
I agree with all of that. Absolutely. And Ambrosia has been very, very nice and has given us a discount code. And I will make sure that I also drop that in the description. But you can get 15% off of a reading by using the code podcast.
Awesome. Hope you guys use it. And thank you so much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for connecting. I'm super excited that we aligned, and I just know that it was at the right time.
Definitely, I agree.
Thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone you love. And it would mean so much to me if you could rate, review, and subscribe so that the podcast can reach and assist more people. Until next time, I'm sending you so much love.